transfer out, or immigrate, or unfortunately would pass away during that 4-year time span to come up with that graduation rate.
So the graduation rate changed, meaning the data, but if you'll remember, even when we had graduation rates that showed 88% of the students graduating within the 4 year, which was what was happening, I would explain to the board that there's something wrong with this picture because our dropout rate was around 3 or 4%. So
for the rest of those kids.
So this is actually a more accurate picture, but you can't. But you don't have a baseline. You don't have sort of the, you know, have we been doing better or worse? We don't have that data because, again, the formula changed and the target math is different.
Would you hazard a guess that we're doing better? Or about the same? I mean, I know you don't have the data to...
We would have to look.
Okay. I'm not asking.
I don't think you can, I don't know if you can do that.
Because we don't have the data. Okay.
Oh,
And then in terms of our next steps, the second bullet point, support for instructional development via collaboration. Can you expound on that a little bit?
So working to be more supportive of that collaboration process for our teachers. We've had a lot of conversation about that process at this point and what that might look like. So working with our school improvement planning teams and those cohort groups that have been coming together to be more active in planning that collaboration time so that it aligns with not only the Destination 2015 goals, but also the goals at specific sites, our school sites for their school improvement plans, and really working with the assistance of our assessment office and also our curriculum and instruction program to create action items for those buildings so that they are providing either professional development in-house, receiving professional development through our curriculum and instruction, or even seeking outside sources to assist in meeting the needs of all of our students, but really looking at how our subgroups and specific age groups of students are performing and what we can be doing to collaborate to have a joint effort, goals moving forward, and also tracking that success. We've been working with our assessment office to be able to actually create a plan, to be able to look at our own accountability. So when we're either improving our core intensive instruction in classrooms or bringing in interventions, how are we going to measure that success to make sure that one, all students would have access to it who need to have access to it, it's handled with fidelity, and we're able to measure what that impact would look at to be able to make a determination as to the success of that program and those materials, or whether we need to continue to seek additional outside or other sources to meet the needs of all of our students.
Thank you.
I just had a question about the poverty gap. It's basically the same, you know, a 0.1% increase, which is not good. Are we attributing that to any sort of increases in general of those that are counted as in poverty? Or what are we attributing that to? Are we looking at that at all?
that's actually a really good question, because it's always hard to compare. And again, that's what you would consider not a significant change at all, because it's only 1/10 of a point. So that's hard to tell, because that's, you know, the class of 2008 to the class of 2013. That's hard to measure that way. There just really isn't much change between the students who are paid lunch students and those that are not paid lunch. Yes, there is an end size difference. That is a true statement too. We'd actually have to dig a little deeper, and off the top of my head, I can't tell you an exact answer as to, you know, is it more students of a particular level versus a different level? I couldn't tell you that off the top of my head.
There's more students who are in poverty.
Right, correct.
They're only juniors.
Right, I just don't know if we have.
So that if we look at the poverty level for our juniors in 13 and our poverty levels for our juniors in 08, we would find that I would think that
that the same barriers are not being broken, I guess, to a certain degree with that. And then just on the graduation rates, a couple of the schools have almost 10% of their students graduating in a 5-year. So we've got, so for instance, Larkin went from 68 to 78. So we have a lot of, in a couple of the schools, like even Streamwood has almost a 10% difference. Are we looking into that, why we're able to, why we have, I mean, 10% is a lot. I mean, I'm glad they're graduating, that they're sticking it out for another year. That's what I'm reading here, right? Is they're sticking it out for another year. So
Could be a summer.
Yeah, it could be a summer.
it could be summer.
Yeah, they don't,
Okay.
Right.
That's good to know. I'm wondering if you can split that up, because we're talking about a class versus an entire year worth of credits. And that's a big difference, both in time and cost. So that would be helpful to tease that out a little bit too. Thanks.
Thank you.
About 6 or so years ago, I read something about graduation rates, or maybe it was on NPR, I don't know, about graduation rates nationwide being around 50-ish%. And since then, of course, they've changed the definition. Is Illinois better than the national average? Generally, do you know?
Again, it's hard to compare because each
'Cause
state
it was
has
a
a
lot
different,
back
well,
then.
and they also have different definitions. If we all had a common definition, it would be easier
Yeah,
to do.
okay.
That again is why we only gave you the state definition and the state
Never
numbers
mind
as
then.
compared to U-46.
There's some publications, Education Week does use the same definition and uses all the states, and we can find that, that article and share. I think Illinois definitely is on the higher end of graduation rates.
Yeah, keep in mind graduation requirements vary by district to district, even within a state, and so then they also vary greatly state by state.
Any other questions?
PSAE tests are just for secondary, not for elementary, right? And the ISAT's only for the other.
ISAT is for middle school and elementary,
Okay.
and PSAE is only for our
High
juniors.
school, right, that's what, I just wanted to make sure. I got it. Thank you.
Anything else?
Is next year the last year for ISAC? This, I'm sorry, is this year?
This year.
Last year?
It
for
is,
ISAC?
it is, in the way we call it ISAC, that is correct.
But we don't know what's coming next, right? We don't know what's coming next?
You know it's coming.
Supposed to
but-
come next.
Right.
I don't know if it's actually going to be.
So this is it, this year's.
This is it.
Year. Okay.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is public comments. Our first speaker is Rick Newton.
We are now at the portion of the agenda where the board welcomes public comment from the audience. The protocol of this part of the meeting is for the board to receive input for consideration and not necessarily to answer questions, provide feedback as a group at this particular time. Persons who wish to speak must first turn in a request to speak card. These cards will be accepted until the first speaker has completed speaking. When your name is called, please come to the presenters table and speak into the microphone. Speakers should state their name, address, and relationship to the district at the beginning of their comments for the public record. Each presenter is allotted up to 3 minutes. If the tone sounds, comments should be concluded as quickly as possible. Finally, presenters who wish to leave written materials for the board can give them to me. Are there any cards to be turned in at this time?
Muy buenas noches. Nos encontramos durante la porción del orden del día, donde la Junta Educativa le da la bienvenida a algún comentario del público. El protocolo de esta parte de la reunión es para que la Junta Educativa reciba información para ser considerada y no necesariamente para contestar preguntas o proveer comentarios como un grupo durante este tiempo en particular. Las personas que desean hablar deben entregar una tarjeta titulada Petición petición para dirigirse públicamente ante la Junta Educativa. Estas peticiones se aceptarán hasta que termine el primer orador. Cuando escuche su nombre, por favor acérquese a la mesa de presentadores y hable directamente en el micrófono. Los oradores deben decir su nombre, dirección y su relación con el distrito antes de comenzar su comentario para el registro público. Cada persona tendrá 3 minutos para dirigirse ante la Junta Educativa. Si escucha una señal, deberá concluir su comentario lo más pronto posible. Y finalmente, aquellas personas que desean dejar material escrito para la Junta Educativa, por favor déjenlo conmigo. ¿Alguien desea hacer un comentario?
And now, Rick Newton.
Good evening, my name is Rick Newton, I'm from Wayne, Illinois. A couple meetings ago, or one meeting ago, 2 weeks ago, somebody had asked me before the meeting if it was going to be a very interesting meeting because the agenda seemed pretty bland. And my response was, you know, never let the agenda fool you because, and never let the board fool you into thinking that something couldn't happen because that's generally when something, true feelings will be revealed. We have come before you, many of us as parents and taxpayers, to talk about issues which are, in many cases, not something in which we are in agreement with the board. And it is still a shutout to this day in terms of never getting any direct feedback from anybody, and it is also rare that we get any written comments back. We recently went through the proposal for the budget. In fact, it went over a 6-month period, and there was never responses back. Even in the last 2 meetings before, when we talked about specifics, we had people ourselves that were pouring through the budget, trying to understand what was going on, never getting any feedback from the board or the administration. And at the meeting last 2 weeks ago, the question was raised, which I would describe as just being very audacious, and it was a question that was targeted at Mrs. Nolan and Mr. Napolitano, asking why they voted in opposition to the vote of the rest of the board, as if that was something that we strive for. That is not. That should not be your objective, to have unanimous votes. It should be. The question was good in the sense that there was an inquisitive nature, but it came 2 weeks late. Why was that question not answered or asked in a prior meeting? That would have been the appropriate place. Why was there not listening that occurred relative to comments that were made? Mrs. Nolan talked about the class sizes and ratios. Mr. Napolitano had talked about what is the return on investment for these increases, and there was never a question. And yet, the question was asked, so you tell me why you voted against it, because I don't have to tell you why I voted for it. In fact, I don't have to ever tell you, because you never do. You never reveal what's behind your votes. And that's called audacity. The other thing that came up in the last couple of weeks was another meeting that I have found just extremely embarrassing. I've had friends from all over the suburbs and the city calling, asking, what in the heck is going on in your school district relative to hiring? I saw the article in the Daily Herald, and we want to know, is it really true that we've reverted back to the 50s, 60s, or before in terms of our hiring practices? Because this district says that we need to hire teachers that mirror the students. How exactly do you define that? Do we do that by skin color? Do we do it by gender? Do we do it by age? Do we do it by sexual preference? Do we do it by their width, their height? What are the criteria? And who's going to play God to decide that? That is not your role. Your role should be to provide the best education possible, and that has nothing to do with those factors.
Thank you. The next speaker is Rick Dunlop.
Hi, Rick Dunlap from Plainfield, Illinois. I got a statement I'll read. Good evening. My name is Rick Dunlap, and I'm here on behalf of the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150, to voice our concern over the demolition